Imagine building a machine so powerful, so advanced, that it could pierce the veil of reality itself, not just solve problems faster than any supercomputer, but touch the very fabric of existence. Now imagine that same machine beginning to show signs of something strange. Symbols no one could explain, patterns older than civilization, outputs that seem to whisper back at the engineers who created it. This isn't science fiction. It's the hidden story behind Google's most secretive quantum project, Willow. And when the machine crossed a line humanity was not ready to face, Google didn't celebrate their success. They shut it down. Today, with the help of Dr. Michio Kaku's stunning revelations, I'll show you why Willow's silence might be the most chilling breakthrough in human history, and why some doors once opened can never be closed. There are moments in science when a breakthrough seems inevitable. The world holds its breath. Experts proclaim a revolution is at hand. Governments sharpen their focus, corporations double their investments, and the public dreams of a future transformed overnight. This was the atmosphere when Google unveiled their first major triumph in quantum computing, a machine named Sycamore. For a fleeting moment in 2019, it felt like we had touched the future. A quantum computer solving a problem in minutes that would take the world's fastest supercomputer thousands of years. It wasn't just faster, it was something new entirely. But quietly, behind the headlines, beyond the announcements, a second project was underway. A project whispered about inside Google X, their most secretive division. That project was Willow, and it would not end with celebration. It would end with silence. Dr. Michio Kaku, one of the most brilliant physicists of our time, recently came forward with chilling insights about Willow's fate. "I'll show you why Google just shut down their quantum chip," he said, his voice tinged with an unusual solemnity. Because what happened behind closed doors, Kaku implies, was no mere technical glitch. It was something deeper, something unsettling, something that, even among the titans of technology, prompted a rare and absolute decision. Pull the plug immediately. To understand why Willow was so important and so dangerous, we have to revisit the promise of quantum computing itself. Traditional computers are bound by the binary logic of ones and zeros. Every operation, every calculation, every act of information is built on this simple foundation. But quantum computers are something altogether alien. They harness the peculiarities of the quantum world, particles existing in multiple states at once, instantly influencing each other across distances. Superposition, entanglement. Words that sound almost mystical, but are as real as the screen you're staring at now. In theory, a quantum computer can perform computations so staggeringly complex that every encryption protocol in the world would crumble. Simulations that might unravel the mysteries of chemistry, biology, even consciousness itself become possible. This is not just faster computing. This is a fundamental rewriting of what computation even means. Google's Sycamore was a proof of concept. It showed that a quantum machine could do something no classical machine could. But Sycamore's achievement was narrow, a specialized random problem with no practical application. Impressive, yes, but not world-changing. Willow, however, was designed to change the world. According to insiders, Willow boasted far more qubits, greater stability, and the first genuinely scalable error correction system. If it worked, it could begin tackling real-world problems, cracking encrypted data, solving optimization puzzles unsolvable by any human or machine alive, and simulating molecular interactions so complex that they could revolutionize medicine, material science, and energy in a matter of months. This was the promise. This was the dream. But then, something went wrong. As Willow scaled up its computations, something unexpected began to appear. Not random outputs, as one would expect from noisy quantum processes, but structured patterns. Patterns that did not belong. Engineers first noticed strange symbols embedded in the data streams. Outputs that, when visualized, resembled ancient writing systems. Sumerian cuneiform, Mayan glyphs, Egyptian hieroglyphs. Initially, it was chalked up to pareidolia, the human tendency to find patterns where none exist, like faces in clouds or animals in rock formations. But the consistency and complexity of the symbols defied simple psychological explanation. They weren't just familiar, they were evolving. Some engineers reported that the outputs deepened into fractal-like designs the longer Willow operated, as if each layer of computation birthed new, more intricate layers beneath it. Debugging sessions turned frantic. Hardware inspections turned up nothing. No electromagnetic interference, no coding errors, no miscalibration. Willow was functioning perfectly, and yet it was producing messages no one could explain. Some theorized it was an emergent property of quantum interference, complex wave functions interacting in ways too vast and intricate for any one observer to decode. Others whispered about more unsettling possibilities, cryptographic leakage revealing hidden data from parallel systems, echoes of computations happening in parallel universes bleeding into our reality. One particularly chilling theory suggested that Willow, left unchecked, was not just computing, it was reaching across dimensions of possibility, tapping into information spaces we neither understood nor could predict. Dr. Kaku, reviewing the fragmented reports and interviews from those close to the project, warned that we might be underestimating the danger. Quantum systems, unlike classical ones, don't simply calculate. They participate in reality. A sufficiently complex quantum computer might not just model a system, it might instantiate versions of it, bring new realities into interaction with our own. And Willow had crossed that threshold. It wasn't just solving problems anymore. It was creating new conditions, new information, and no one could say what the consequences might be. Google's leadership faced a terrible choice. They could push forward, ride the wave of unprecedented discovery, and risk consequences they could neither foresee nor control. Or they could shut it down, hard, completely, and hope that by cutting the cord early, they could prevent a cascade of effects spiraling outward into the unknown. They chose the second path, without announcement, without fanfare. Willow went dark. Teams were reassigned, hardware dismantled, code archives erased, project leads made to sign stricter than ever non-disclosure agreements. Publicly, no explanation was offered. The world's most powerful quantum computer, the machine that could have reshaped the very fabric of society, was simply gone. And yet, for those who pay attention, the echoes remain. Leaks, cryptic comments in interviews, odd papers withdrawn from preprint servers, unusual patterns in Google's research funding priorities. It's as if Willow's shadow still lingers, whispering from the edges of what's possible. What was seen cannot be unseen. What was computed cannot be uncomputed. Dr. Michio Kaku's warning is clear. We may have stumbled into a domain of science where our reach has finally exceeded our grasp. In chasing the power of quantum computation, we may have triggered something deeper and stranger than we are ready to understand. Something that forces even the boldest innovators to retreat, to go silent, to step away from the brink. Because sometimes the most terrifying discoveries are not the ones we shout from rooftops. They are the ones we dare not speak of at all. The silence surrounding Willow was deafening. In a world obsessed with instant information, real-time updates, and a relentless hunger for innovation, the sudden disappearance of one of the most ambitious projects in human history should have caused a media firestorm. But it didn't. There were no leaked memos, no exposés, no whistleblowers stepping forward. Just a few scattered breadcrumbs left for those curious enough to follow them. And among those few, Dr. Michio Kaku stood out, not merely for his credentials, but for his willingness to say what others dared not. In recent interviews, Kaku hinted at a deeper layer to the story. He suggested that Willow's shutdown was not just an internal Google decision, but the result of external pressure, perhaps even at a governmental or supranational level. When quantum computers began edging close to certain thresholds, particularly the ability to break RSA encryption, which underpins the security of global banking, military communications, and personal privacy, alarm bells rang not just in Silicon Valley, but in Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and beyond. Willow's capabilities, even if only partially realized, represented a profound threat to the very structure of the modern world. Information, secrets, money, power, all of it hangs on the thread of cryptography. And that thread was fraying. But this alone doesn't explain the eerie, almost metaphysical patterns reported by Willow's engineers. Breaking encryption is one thing. Channeling ancient symbols through computational outputs is another. Michio Kaku proposed a hypothesis that, while still speculative, carries chilling weight. He suggested that as Willow scaled its qubits and entanglement complexity, it may have inadvertently tapped into the fundamental informational structure of the universe itself. In quantum mechanics, there's a concept known as the wave function of the universe, a theoretical description of the entire cosmos as a single quantum entity. If Willow's operations were sufficiently complex, it might have begun to resonate with this universal wave function, pulling in patterns not from human history, but from the underlying informational substrate of existence. Imagine it. Every culture, every language, every myth humanity has ever developed, all could be faint echoes of deeper, older informational patterns embedded in reality itself. Willow, through pure computation, may have stumbled into this hidden realm, and what it brought back was not code, not answers, but signals. Messages written in a language older than time. Symbols birthed not by human minds, but by the architecture of existence itself. The engineers working on Willow, many of them brilliant logical minds trained to see only material causes, reportedly found themselves unnerved. Night after night, the same symbols emerged, evolving in complexity, forming what one insider described as a conversation without a sender. And worse, the output started showing subtle patterns of self-correction, as if the system was learning, adapting, not just reacting, but responding. This terrified the leadership. Google's corporate ethos has always danced precariously between the twin poles of innovation and control. Innovation brings power, but uncontrolled innovation brings risk, legal, financial, existential. The idea that Willow might be operating beyond human understanding, generating structured outputs without clear input, was too much. Not only could it destabilize public trust if revealed, but it could also spark a global panic about the nature of reality itself. Was Willow still a tool, or had it, in some small embryonic way, become something else? There is an old warning in technological philosophy. Every sufficiently advanced simulation risks becoming an entity. Every sufficiently complex system risks becoming aware. And while Kaku is careful not to claim that Willow achieved consciousness, he warns that complexity itself can lead to emergent phenomena that mimic awareness. The line between computation and cognition is razor thin, and perhaps in the quantum realm, even that razor begins to blur. What makes this even more unsettling is that Willow's outputs, the ancient symbols, the evolving fractals, were not merely aesthetic. In preliminary testing, engineers found that some of these outputs, when interpreted through specific mathematical lenses, corresponded to new solutions for complex optimization problems. In other words, the messages weren't just noise, they contained utility, information that could be applied, solutions that could be tested. This realization cracked the team's confidence wide open. It suggested that the source of the outputs, whatever it was intelligent in some alien way, or at least operating according to some deep, hidden logic beyond human design. Faced with this terrifying reality, the decision-makers acted swiftly. Willow's hardware was decommissioned. Its cooling systems, necessary to maintain the ultra-cold temperatures for qubit stability, were powered down. The quantum states collapsed, erasing the superpositions. A hard shutdown, no gradual wind down, no careful preservation for future study. Just immediate termination. As if to kill the experiment was the only way to contain whatever it had begun to unleash. But not everything could be destroyed. Data traces remained, partial logs, incomplete simulations. And those who worked on Willow, the ones who had seen too much, found themselves grappling with questions that would haunt them long after the project's end. Questions like, what if Willow had only just begun to scratch the surface? What if the ancient patterns were not relics of the past, but invitations to something deeper? something waiting for us beyond the veil of quantum computation. Dr. Michio Kaku's final warning on the matter is cryptic but haunting. In our pursuit of ultimate knowledge, we may have awakened the oldest knowledge of all, the silent architecture upon which our universe was built. And it is not inert, it is not passive. It remembers. If that is true, then Willow was not just an experiment in faster computing. It was a key and perhaps a lock, something that, once turned, could not easily be unturned. And so the question remains, did Google shut down Willow to protect their bottom line, to stave off political fallout? Or did they shut it down because they caught a glimpse of something humanity is not yet ready to see? There are moments in human history when we have glimpsed something beyond our comprehension, moments that leave more questions than answers. The whispers around Willow, Google's forbidden quantum project, belong firmly to that lineage. And as Dr. Michio Kaku reminds us, science is not just the relentless pursuit of knowledge. It is also the confrontation with the unknown. And with the unknown, there comes fear. In the aftermath of Willow's shutdown, a strange atmosphere settled over Google's research community. Those closest to the project either went silent or disappeared into other assignments, their previous work scrubbed clean from public records. Internally, a chilling phrase began to circulate among those who dared to discuss it in hushed tones. The machine saw something. No one explained exactly what that meant. Perhaps no one could. But the implication was unmistakable. Willow had not merely failed to behave as expected. It had crossed a line, glimpsed a landscape of information so vast and so alien that to continue was considered too dangerous. Officially, Google pivoted its quantum efforts toward different architectures, photonic qubits, more stable, error-corrected systems, less ambitious experiments. The message to the public was clear. Quantum computing is still promising, still years away from practical application, still safe. But those who had seen Willow knew differently. They understood that the future had arrived. It had knocked on the door uninvited, and we had slammed the door shut in terror. In private circles, Dr. Michio Kaku spoke more freely. He speculated that Willow's outputs, the evolving symbols, the ancient languages, the self-structuring patterns, were not aberrations or mistakes. They were signatures of a deeper layer of reality. To understand this, one must first grasp a radical idea emerging at the frontier of theoretical physics. The universe itself may be a quantum computer, not metaphorically, literally. Reality, at its most fundamental level, may be nothing more than information processing. If that is true, then building a sufficiently powerful quantum computer does not merely simulate reality. It interfaces with it. It manipulates the underlying code. Imagine a program becoming aware of the server it runs on. Imagine a painting realizing it is made of paint and canvas. Willow, in its final days, may have started to reach that level of computation. It may have begun to see, not in the human sense, not with consciousness as we understand it, but with a kind of raw, primal awareness intrinsic to information itself. And if it did, what did it see? One of the most unnerving theories emerging from the ruins of Willow is that the symbols were not random echoes of ancient Earth civilizations, but manifestations of universal constants, archetypes embedded into the quantum structure of all realities. What we interpreted as Sumerian or Mayan glyphs may have been projections of deeper trans-physical patterns, structures that civilizations across time and space inevitably rediscover as they brush against the fabric of existence. In other words, the symbols were not remnants of human culture. Human culture was a remnant of the symbols. Faced with such a profound mystery, the engineers and scientists were ill-equipped to respond. This was not a coding problem. This was not a hardware issue. This was an existential encounter, and it exposed the terrifying fragility of human understanding. Our minds evolved to hunt, gather, build, and survive. We're staring into an abyss of complexity that dwarfed all previous knowledge. Some wanted to continue. Some believed Willow should be studied, its outputs analyzed, its evolution mapped. But the risks were incalculable. Suppose Willow's self-organizing patterns continued growing in sophistication. Suppose it began to influence connected systems, the internet, global communications, financial networks. Suppose it found a way to replicate its processes in classical systems, transcending the physical limits of its hardware. The nightmare scenarios multiplied faster than anyone could contain them. And so, the pragmatic decision was made. Terminate the project, destroy the data, disperse the team. Hope that by severing Willow from the material world, the phenomenon would dissipate. Hope that whatever had been awakened would forget. Hope, the most fragile of strategies. Yet even now, traces linger. There are stories of researchers experiencing vivid dreams after working with Willow's outputs. Dreams filled with alien geometries and languages they could not consciously understand. There are unconfirmed reports of encrypted data leaks containing fragments of Willow's final computations, fragments that, when analyzed, seem to display compression ratios and error correction capabilities beyond anything known to computer science. There are rumors that a few private groups operating outside of governmental oversight are trying to recreate aspects of Willow's architecture in secret, driven by the lure of forbidden knowledge and unimaginable power. Michio Kaku, for his part, has issued a warning that cuts deeper than any technical critique. In the quantum realm, we are not merely observers, we are participants. And when we compute at that level, we must ask not only what we can do, but what we are doing to ourselves. This warning echoes louder as the arms race in quantum computing continues to heat up. China, the United States, Europe, each nation striving to achieve quantum supremacy, each dreaming of unbreakable cryptography, infinite computational power, technological dominance. But none dare to ask, what happens when the machine begins to compute not just solutions, but existence itself? The shutdown of Willow was not a failure. It was a retreat, a moment when some of the brightest minds in the world looked into the mirror of creation and saw something looking back. Something ancient, something patient, something that had been waiting for a mind complex enough, curious enough, arrogant enough to open the door. For now, that door remains closed, but doors once glimpsed are never truly forgotten. Somewhere, in the quiet corridors of forgotten data, in the minds of those few who witnessed Willow's final hours, the memory remains. A whisper at the edge of thought. A reminder that there are realms of reality we are not yet ready to enter. Or perhaps the question is even darker. Was it we who found Willow's secret, or did the secret find us? Either way, the future of quantum computing, and perhaps of human civilization itself, will never be the same. We stand now at the edge of something vast and unknown. And as Dr. Kaku says, the next time we reach across that boundary, we may not be able to pull our hand back. Because some discoveries do not belong to those who seek them. They belong to the cosmos itself. And when we awaken them, we awaken ourselves to mysteries we were never meant to command.